what like symptoms of hormone issues, and then I'm going to go through like causes of hormone issues, and then when I start talking about different things you can do to help them, I'm going to go like, okay, now if you're on TikTok, or if you can't catch you want to catch the rest of the show, you can catch us on Facebook on Dr. Delp Chiropractic, and then that way it don't keep such a long show.
Sounds good.
All right, Sydney, what's the Facebook is what?
Facebook is just Delp Chiropractic.
Classic Country 98.1. Good morning. Show. Cousin Andy stepping back in the studios. We've got the one and only. It's after 11. Dr. Adam Delp.
Hello, Cousin Andy. How are you doing today?
Hey, doing good. Got just a tad bit of an echo there, but you sounded good, I think.
Well, good. I'm sorry about the echo. We'll see if we can't work on that. Hey, Tommy.
Yeah, we'll work on it as we talk this morning.
There's a little echo coming through. I bet it's from that speaker.
Yeah. So you doing all right?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Yes, sir. Enjoying all this beautiful spring weather. Although it's a little chilly this morning, but it warms up nicely during the late, right during the daylight.
Yes, sir. I don't mind the weather at all.
Yeah, I don't either. I know you had a good Easter.
Oh, had a phenomenal Easter.
And all that.
Had a really good Easter. I can't complain. Doesn't do any good, does it?
Nah, nobody cares. Does it?
No, not at all. Not at all. Did the Easter Bunny come see you?
The Easter Bunny was good to me. Very blessed this Easter. And I got great see some of my grandkids. That's all. Having fun with them. Having Easter eggs and church with them and all that. It's all great.
That's right. Did you go to sunrise service this Sunday?
I did not make it to sunrise service this year. Sometimes I go to breakfast restaurant and all that. I did do that. I had breakfast. I took breakfast Saturday morning for my food at home. So, hey, I did my own sunrise service. On Saturday morning. So exactly.
I'm probably going to get a headset. I can barely hear. I can hear you, but not super clear. So I'm going to pop a headset on, Cousin Andy, because I'm having trouble. I'm hearing you, but it's really quiet.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, we know Dr. Delp is doing some other things right now. You're doing social media things like that. And you kind of got to hook up with it, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we are. So can you hear me now? Turn it up a little bit, if you would. Come on up a little bit more.
That's as loud as it
That's
gets.
as loud as it gets. All right. I guess I'm going to hear you on a quiet note today, Cousin Andy.
Yeah.
Well, today we're going to talk about hormones. So, what do you mean hormones, right? So hormones, we start talking about hormones. Say again, Cousin Andy? Yes. So we are going to get fired up, because if your hormones aren't working right, you might not be so fired up, right, Cousin Andy? You're clear as a bell now. We're good to go. Okay. So, if anybody's out there, and part of the show, we're going to talk about hormones. We're going to talk about if you have a hormone problem, what you may feel like, how you may feel, and then we're going to talk about some of the causes of hormone issues. So if it rings a bell with you, if you want to keep on, because Cousin Andy says he can only listen to me for so long, right, Cousin Andy? And he's got other things to do. So we're going to talk about some of the things you can do for treatment after that. But like I said today, we're going to fire up some hormones, get the hormones rolling, and then if you want to ask questions, you can go to TikTok at Dr. Delp, DRDELP Chiro, or you can go on YouTube. We're going live on both those right now with help with Doc Delp, and that's DOC Delp. And then you can also, after the show, we'll have it on Facebook posted up so you can check us out. So if you're interested, want to find out more, check us out on Facebook, TikTok, or YouTube. So let's get this party started. What do you say, Cousin Andy? I can hear you clear as a bell. So I'm back just like we normally. I put my headset on. So I feel like I'm a DJ now. I got my headset, and I get to pretend, right? Like what's the old saying, like you stayed at a Holiday Inn Select last night. I would blow you a kiss, but I'm afraid my wife might get jealous. So So when we talk about hormones, we're talking about there's a lot of hormones that make up your body, but today we're going to focus on really two main hormones, which is estrogen and testosterone. So we're talking about estrogen and testosterone. I'm going to talk about symptoms of hormone problems with males and females. So if you're having any issues with these, and I'm going to mention the symptoms first, and if it rings a bell with you, then perk up. If you're thinking about your spouse, or maybe your kids, or maybe your grandkids, or people you know, then it may also help. You may be able to help them out unknowingly. So let's get this fired up. So one of the top causes of people starting to notice problems, and a lot of times they don't know what the issue is. We talk about hormones. A lot of times, if your hormones are off, one of the big things you'll notice is fatigue. So when you talk about fatigue, you just feel tired all the time. You don't, you wake up, you still feel tired. You go throughout the day, you know, what you used to could do in a day, it takes you forever to recover now. Also, it can cause weight gain. Like you just can't seem to lose weight. You gain weight. You can't lose weight. You'd be surprised how many people don't even realize they have a hormone issue because they're, like they say, tired all the time. They have weight gain. Another big one is their drive. When I say drive, their libido, their sex drive is off. You know, they say their wife or their husband comes in and says, "Hey, honey, it's Saturday night," and they say, would you want to do something, or you want me to make you a sandwich?" And she says, or he says, "What kind of sandwich?" That's, you know, usually there's some situations there, you know, as a male or female that we're wanting some intimacy, and you may not have that same drive that you used to, or you may, or your spouse is like, "What kind of sandwich do you say?" You're like, "Whoa, it used to be a lot differently." But and I've actually had people in their relationships, they start to have problems and they start to think their spouse is running around on them or not being true, and it may not be the case. It may be the fact that their hormones are off and they just aren't interested. So I've had a lot. So normally the big ones are fatigue, sex drive, weight gain. Another one, say you've got grandkids or you've got children and they're trying to have kids and they're having trouble getting pregnant. Infertility is another one. So if your hormone levels are off, it can cause infertility. So let's talk about some of the more specific symptoms to women, and let's talk about some of the more specific symptoms to men. So let's hit women. What's the old saying? Ladies first, right, Cousin Andy? So ladies first, say you're still in an age where you have a menstrual cycle, your PMS symptoms are much stronger. Like, you know, you're really not a happy person, and which means your kids or your spouse, you know, they're running for the hills, if you get what I'm saying. So their PMS is off the charts. They're just, you know, really, let's say feisty is a good way of saying it. They may, if you have a menstrual cycle, you may also have light or heavy menstrual bleeding. So you may have really light where your menstruation cycle, when you had a certain way of menstruating, and then now it's really light, you don't notice much. Or on the other side of the coin, it's super heavy now. You know, we see it a lot of times when people use birth control, especially with certain type of IUDs. They will start getting really heavy bleeding, but it's because they're getting a lot of estrogen. They're putting in a lot of these, especially certain like the Mirena and some of the other ones. They'll have estrogen already inside of them, so it will cause really heavy menstrual bleeding. Another one is they may start to get lumps in their breasts. In fact, a lot of people think they've got breast cancer or they're developing breast cancer. They'll go in, they'll say, "Nope, you just got lumps in your breast." That's usually a sign of too much estrogen. Okay, so in all these, we're talking about increase in PMS, we're talking about menstruation issues, we're talking about cysts in the breast, we're talking about higher than normal levels of estrogen. Okay, that's for females. So also, they'll get what's called as fibroids. You'll see, when I take x-rays of women, we'll see these little nodules in their uterus, and we know that for some people, obviously there's certain things we have to send out because we're concerned that could be a tumor growing, but we can also have fibroids. One of the big ones, though, if you have too much estrogen, you'll be depressed. You'll have a lot of depression. So you'll see this a lot. People have depression issues and they won't know why they are depressed. In a lot of cases, because they're getting too much estrogen in their diet or in certain products they use on a daily basis. And we're going to talk more about that in just a few moments, okay? So for men, it's very similar. Men will typically still have fatigue, sex drive issues, weight gain. infertility problems. I've had some people say, we keep going to the doctor, we're trying to have a baby, and we can't do it. They're saying it's not my fault, they're saying it's his fault. It may be that he's getting too much estrogen in his diet or in certain things that he does or he's exposed to it. So for men, they'll typically have ED or erectile dysfunction. So they also will tend to get enlarged, we call it gynecomastia. They'll start getting fatty deposits around their chest, around their breast. So we call it man don't know if I can say it on the air, but man boobs. They start getting man boobs. I guess I said it. I guess that's not bad, is it? Did I cross the line on that one, Cousin Andy? So keep it PG-13, right? Or maybe PG. So another one that men and women can get is brain fog. So they'll just feel like they just don't make decisions quickly like they used to. They get confused easier. They just feel like they got fog. And a lot of guys will really notice this. They'll just say, I just don't feel like I'm me. I feel like I'm just kind of, like my mind just can't make decisions, or I just don't feel crisp in my brain. So we call brain fog. Women can get it too. Men tend to get it even worse. They'll start to have trouble gaining muscle. We're used to could go to the gym and work out and get pumped. Do some curls for the girls, right? Now your curls are not really showing a whole lot of progress. They'll have loss of muscle, okay? And also when they work out, they run or they try to exercise, it just takes them forever to get over the workout. They don't recover quick like they used to. So those are usually the major symptoms of a hormone issue. And what we're finding nowadays is that we're having tons of certain hormones dumped into our lives unknowingly. So first of all, let's talk about some causes. So one of the first causes is obviously if you're not getting enough sleep or you stay stressed all the time. So you've got a job that's just stressing you out all the time and you have sleep issues, you're going through a separation, you're going through deaths in the family, one of your spouses or children or maybe fighting cancer, something that's really bringing you down. This can affect your hormones, obviously. However, on the other side of the coin, if you're getting too much estrogen or being exposed to too much estrogen, then it can also cause you to have problems with sleep and stress. So it could actually be causing the other one to develop, and it may not be sleep or stress. In other words, too much estrogen can actually cause sleep or stress problems too. So let's talk about some of the most common causes of too much estrogen you're being exposed to. So you ever heard people say, oh, you think everything's a conspiracy, right? You heard that before? Now they're not out to get you. You're just, you've been watching too much of that. That was the radio show they have, was it Coast to Coast at night where they talk about the aliens and all that stuff? Is that right? Is you know what I'm talking about? It's the one that talks about alien kind of stuff, which I've got buddies of mine that love it. But they'll say, they're not giving you anything in these medications. Y'all are crazy. Y'all just put your tinfoil hat on. Well, I'm not here to say one way or the other, but I will say this: there are so many things that's in our diet and we're being exposed to that will cause hormonal imbalance that when you start looking at it, it'll start to scare you. So let's talk about them. So first and foremost is something that's sprayed on all of our crops. It's called astrazine. Okay, so it's a weed killer. So they use astrazine in a lot of commercial applications. It gets into their fruits and vegetables, and you ingest it. Also, when they're spraying it, guess what happens? When they're spraying, especially from aircraft and things like that, it gets in the air and gets exposed out, and you breathe it. So weed killers are a really big one that can cause estrogen dominance, or it can cause, we call it an estrogenic effect. So what happens is your body will get this into your bloodstream and it will think that you've actually taken in estrogen. So your body responds the same, okay? So another big one, and is in everything, is this 3-letter word. A lot of people say it's a 3-letter. Now, if you're a farmer and you grow it, I'm not here to knock you, so don't misunderstand me. You got to make a living. However, if my kids having problems, then you really want to consider reducing this from your diet. In fact, we might even want to touch base on this because a lot of parents are saying, back when I was like 15 or 16, I was chasing girls, or I was doing all this, and vice versa, and so they're seeing a lot. We call it feminization of men nowadays. If you notice that there's a lot, the younger generation is having more problems. They're not tend to be as masculine as what they used to be. Have you noticed that, Cousin Andy? Yep, yep. They're and there's a famous endocrinologist in New York that I was talking to, and he said we're actually it's to the level that it's an epidemic. He says 16-year-olds are not interested in three-letter word anymore. They're more interested in playing with their video games or what. And he says a lot of them. That's why you're seeing more people are not. They're having issues with their identification because they're being hormonally affected, and that's what his theory is anyway. I'm not saying that I'm not saying you have to agree or disagree with that, but he thinks that there's a lot more people that are having issues with their identification and things like that is because they're being hormonally changed or they're being affected that way. So soy is in everything. So when you go get your soy latte in the morning, soy is in it. When you go pop open a bag of chips, if you look on the back of it, it'll say soybean, cooked in soybean oil. Or sometimes it'll say vegetable. It's got soy in it. There's also a lot of your protein supplements people are taking to gain muscle has soy in it. You have to be careful. It'll say whey protein blend or protein blend, and then it'll have soy listed in it. A lot of the different foods will have soy filler put in it. You go to some of these restaurants, some of the hamburger will have soy cut into it, especially fast food chains, so that way that they can save some money, lower the fat content, and increase your protein. The problem is that soy is an estrogen. It's a plant-based estrogen called a phytoestrogen. So you ever heard of a phytoestrogen before, Cousin Andy? So it's basic. So if you eat soy, your body knows no different than if you take an estrogen. So if I give myself a pill of estrogen and I eat soy, your body's going to treat it the same way. So, and some of the people would say, hey, you're just, this went to the FDA, they said it's safe, and I've had a lot of people say, hey, you can't trust the FDA, and it's starting to change. They're starting to make some changes in the FDA that are positive. However, what's the old saying? Trust but verify, right? So the problem is they're saying, yeah, if you have this one product with soy in it, it's got such a little amount that's really not a problem. The problem is that it's in the soft drink, it's in the bag of chips you're eating, it's in the breakfast product that you're eating. It's when you go home at night, it's in this, it's in that, and so you go, holy cow, I'm actually being exposed to estrogen daily. So what does it make you do? It makes you gain weight, it makes you more irritable, makes you depressed, it makes you tired, it causes you to have a lower sex drive, it can cause you to have trouble with when you want to reproduce or want to have children. So that's soy. Soy is a plant-based estrogen, so you really got to watch, especially. Now, on the other side of the coin, if you're a female and your estrogen is getting low, I have a lot of ladies that I recommend in my office. They'll say, I'm having night sweats, I'm having all these issues, and we check their hormones, and their estrogen level is low, their estradiol, things like that. Then what we do is we actually say, instead of you taking they don't want to take a medication, I say, go ahead and try drinking a couple glasses of soy milk a night, and their symptoms will actually reduce. Now, everybody's different. You might say one lady might need 8 glasses of soy milk, and somebody might need 2 or 3 glasses of soy milk for you. Everybody's a little different. So, but for a man, it just kills their testosterone. So estrogen, actually, when you have too much estrogen, it actually gobbles up your testosterone. Without getting into the whole, the way it breaks down in your body, it's just not good. Let's put it that way. So, so that's another one. Ever heard of something called BPAs, Cousin Andy? So it is a product they use in plastics, okay? So BPAs is another estrogenic compound. So or makes your body will think that you've taken an estrogen. So do you drink from plastic cups? Boom, they're water bottles. What about paper plates? Do you know they spray that on top of them? They actually spray that with something called phthalates as well. They'll actually mix them in there because it's a plasticizer. We'll get into that one in a moment. Your styrofoam. You go to get sometimes these soda cans, the aluminum soda cans, sometimes they spray it inside. Now, not as much with that one, but you get it in a lot of the plastic products. And people say, well, you're supposed to, you really don't get that unless it gets warm. Well, how do your water bottles get transported to the grocery store? In a tractor trailer, right? They're going to be warm. So you're exactly right. You're exactly right. So you may put them in the refrigerator at your house, but I can tell you I used to work when I was in college while I was going through college, before I went into graduate school, I worked at a trucking company and loaded trucks. And in the summertime, the trucks could get like 140 degrees. It was like 120, 130, 140 degrees, depending on how hot the day was, because it just holds the heat. Well, when you're going down the road, you're getting hot. When it's sitting still, it's getting hot, and those chemicals leach out into the water. And people say, well, I keep my plates that are plastic, and I keep my plastic cupware, and they don't get hot. But then you dump a hot drink in it, or you put your food you just cooked and you dump it on there, or you dump it and throw it in the microwave and nuke it. So all those things will leach those chemicals out into the food, and then you ingest the food, and then your body responds with all these other problems that you start to get. Another one that and the warehouses are most are not air conditioned either. So you start adding that in. You start adding in your soy. You start adding in the weed killer you're exposed to. And if you think about it, you get a piece of fruit that's been grown with weed killer, sprayed on it. You also, with the BPAs, you're getting in your plastic water bottles that you're drinking, because you're trying to be healthy and drink water, but also in your soda bottles as well. All these things are developing in it, and they'll change the names of it sometimes, so it's kind of confusing, so it's not as straightforward as what you would think. Another one that's a real big one is something called parabens. It's used as a preservative. So they'll use it a lot in your soaps, your shampoos, your lotions, your shower gels, everything. Look at the back. Well, we're going to get into that. I've got don't rain on my parade, dear cousin Andy, right? It is, and so unfortunately, I'm gonna have to, for the radio side, I'm gonna go through the causes, and then we're gonna continue it on. So if you're interested in this conversation, we'll learn more about things you can do to kind of balance it out. Then just hop on our Facebook. You can go back and look at our Facebook, or TikTok. You can go to Dr. Delp Chiro, or YouTube, Help with Doc Delp, and then we're going to go on. But there's two other things we want to cover before we move to that, which is the parabens. They're in your makeup. They're in your I don't know what kind of makeup you wear. Last time I saw you wouldn't wear any makeup, so I don't think you normally wear makeup, right, cousin Andy? Hey, maybe it's Maybelline, right? Maybe it's Maybelline. So toothpaste has it in there though too. So personal people that even like, well, we won't get into that one. But so shave gels, there's creams, they have it in everything. So you start adding this in the phthalates, which is, there's a big common one it's seen in a lot of fragrances. So they'll actually have on the label say fragrance. That's actually phthalates. So they'll use it in a lot of things in your products to give it a smell. So you're actually getting dosed with all these different things all day long. So that's where you can kind of come in. Now, obviously, you can start looking at products and start looking at the name, and if you see fragrance on there, then you obviously are probably getting some of that in. If it says BPA, like Bravo, Papa, Alpha, that's one of the ones that do that. If it says like methylparaben or ethylparaben, if it says the word paraben in it at all, PARABENS, then that's another one that will cause it. If you're eating anything that's got soy in it, that's another one. Obviously, weed killer is hard to stay away from, because you commercially spray it unless you're growing it in your backyard. But you're probably still a lot of people still use weed killers as well. But if you're looking at products, you can start to cull that out and get and help yourself out. Now, I will say, we're going to start on the second part of our show. We're going to get into some different things like that you can take supplemental wise that will boost yours naturally. We're also going to talk about some blood tests that you can take to find out if this may be a problem. And unfortunately, what we find out is I've got some amazing friends of mine that are family physicians. They just don't receive a lot of training in this area. I've seen some that are really, really good with it. But if I had to say, most of my colleagues would say if they lined up 10 of your family practitioners, probably 2 out of 10, and maybe even some people say 1 out of 10 will be very familiar with this. So they may say, you're fine, you're normal, but you might be like on the low side normal. So you may have all the symptoms. However, they can't do anything to treat it with. You have to go to people that specialize in hormones. And I normally refer people that specialize in hormones that can help balance it out. We'll get into more of that in just a little bit. But for Cousin Andy, do you have any other questions before we get into that second round? have heard of that. I've not used it myself. I actually need to pop that up. And it's like yucca, like the potato starchy plant. You're talking about the YUCCA yucca. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. All right. So I think that's definitely helpful because using things like that, because a lot of the stuff when you look on the back label, you have to be a physicist to be able to not physicist, a chemist to be able to understand it all. So when I do it, I grab my wife will come with the product and she's like, oh crap, here he goes again. So I was turning around. Now she's getting to where she's doing it now. She's like, oh man. In fact, the other day she came in and she says, I can't eat off of paper plates anymore. And I think she got on to, which I'm not going to say the name, but there's a coffee company that has this green and you know what I'm talking about without me saying the name. That they're showing they're actually putting stuff in there that causes stuff in your coffee that causes cancer. And you're like, are you kidding me? You're actually adding it to the product? Like, what's your deal? And I've got people that swear that this is conspiracy, that they're trying to to depopulate the world. And I'm not getting into all that. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But they're trying to depopulate the world with medications and through these use of these hormones. Because the more of these hormones they put in your diet, the less fertile you'll be, and they can decrease the population. I'm not here to get into all that. But I will tell you what different things you can do to try to balance that out besides removing them from your diet. So if you see on your product label, you see BPA, you see something called paraben. It's got paraben. It's usually got an they'll say isoparaben or methylparaben or ethylparaben. If it says paraben on the backside of it, it's in there. If it says fragrance on the back or it says phthalates, which phthalates, it actually looks kind of weird. It's PHTALATE. It's phthalates. So it's hard to say. I have trouble with that's my mountain accent, I guess you would say. And they may even have DEP on the back of it, as in Delta Echo Papa, on the back of it for, and they may abbreviate it or use fragrance. So a lot of times it's like MSG, they'll say natural flavoring. That's not natural flavoring, but they call it that and then get away with it. So you've heard that one before, I'm sure. So start looking at your products. The first thing is use that Yucca app. That'd be another one. Haven't used it. I will start to use it and start to see how that works. But those are some simple things you can do to try to. You start to think these people that do have their tinfoil hats on, you go, well, maybe they are onto something. I don't know. Maybe they are onto something. It goes back to the more you can cook yourself, and it's not easy. You got to pre-plan. You know what's going into it. But if you're buying something pre-packaged, you're trusting a company that does not know you. And I truly believe that these companies are just doing it. They're trying to be profitable. And so if you put parabens into things stay like if I put it in your lotion, it stays on the shelf a lot longer. It doesn't go bad. So to them, and they're like, the FDA says it's okay. So they're trying to be profitable. You get a lot more companies that are going away from that, but the product does cost more. But there's a lot of people that are starting to use like olive oil as a moisturizer. You can do you go to some of these farmers markets, you can buy a lot of these goat's milk lotions and soaps, and you know what's in it. You know they're not buying these extra chemicals, or you got a good idea they're not. You can ask them and they're going to say, oh yeah. And you can also use your BS meter. If they're like, oh yeah, you can get an idea that they're, but most of these people are not going to add this stuff in. Whereas a company that's got to ship it across the United States, that's got to sit on the shelf for years, they're gonna want that to stay better longer. A lot of these plasticizers, like the phthalates, they're used to make things more flexible. They add them to your makeup, your cosmetics, your toothpaste. They put them on your paper plates. That's another one. My wife, and honestly, she came home with it, and I started researching. I was like, oh my gosh, they could put this on paper plates, So we're dumping our hot food on the paper plate, thinking it's paper, no big deal, but we're literally ingesting all those chemicals that's in there. So we got rid of our paper plates. We're using, Chinette. We're using porcelain. We actually got rid of our plastic plates because we didn't think about it. When you're getting a hot cup of coffee and you're dumping in a styrofoam or you're dumping into a plastic cup that you bought at a coffee shop, you're ingesting all these hormones on a daily basis. You're like, I don't know why I feel like crap. I don't know why I can't lose weight. I don't know why that I'd rather have a sandwich instead of being intimate with my spouse. I don't know why that I'm growing breasts and I'm a guy. I don't know why that I've got my PMS is off the charts. I've had the biggest problem with PMS lately too, because it's been horrible. But I'm joking, by the way. Of course, my wife might disagree with him. She says he's got a bad case of that. But now they're actually calling it menopause for men. They're saying that this estrogen has actually caused them to have like weird symptoms like a female would go through. So if you feel like you need a hug, maybe you need to pass up on the soy latte, right? That might say, but at any rate, so at this point in time, and we can keep going as long as you want, Cousin Andy, but I'm gonna go into, but trim it back. So, and if you want to catch it, like I said, just hop on to TikTok, Dr. Delp Cairo, help with Doc Delp, D-O-C, Doc Delp, or you can go on our Facebook page after the fact and it'll be posted on there. So, other than that, Cousin, you have an awesome day. It's always good talking to you. 336-786-5555. That's 336-786-5555. And as a quick thing, I don't treat the hormone issues. We work with a lot of supplements and stuff like that in my office. So we typically refer out to two different places. One is on a place that you can call. It's called Telewellness MD. You can call them, and for my patients, they'll let me give them a code so they don't charge them for the first visit, and they can talk to them online. You can use the Delp 25 code. I think it will shouldn't charge you for the visit, and I think they even give you discounts. But once again, I don't work for them, so you have to handle that with them. But they've been real good to take care of my patients. They do a lot of the hormone stuff online, and they can send it right to your door. Also, we refer our patients to a place down in Winston called Blue Sky. They do a real good job too. There's other hormone clinics. I'm just mentioning the ones that we use the most, but those are some other options for you if you want to get some more help with that. So other than that, let's move on to round two. Ready, Cousin Andy? That's right. You have a great day, and I'll talk to you next Wednesday.